Hey guys, welcome. My name is Marina. I'm the founder of Creatively. I'm joined here by my husband, Alex.
Hello everyone.
Oh, you changed it up just a little bit
Did I?
tonight. A little bit. You added the extra hello.
You know, it's so nice you can do it twice.
So tonight we are going to be painting Empire State of Mind, our latest painting. Super excited about this one. There's a little bit of an abstract art action going on in this one, so it's going to be super fun, really just going with the flow and being spontaneous. Very excited. So we're going to give you guys about 10 minutes or so to set up, and in the meantime, I'm going to go through my setup over here and tell you what I have going on.
Let's do it.
But before that, if you guys are joining,
Yeah,
please
so
say
hold
hi in the
on,
chat.
come on
Yeah,
now.
we gotta, you know,
say hello.
say hello.
What are you drinking?
Tell us what you're drinking. Tell us where
First
you're
time with
from.
us?
What?
First time with us?
First time with us.
First
We're
time
asking too many
painting?
questions. Oh my God.
We're presenting a lot of options.
There's a lot. There's like 10 questions here.
You don't have to answer all of them. It's just options are good.
Okay,
Options
we
are
have
good.
Ricky from Long Beach in the house. Welcome, Ricky. We have Lisa from Wisconsin, Indiana, North Carolina, Minnesota. Welcome, guys. Are there any Canadians in the house? We shall see. So we are streaming from Queens, New York. Forest Hills in the house. So Alex, you ready for this?
Born ready, coach. Let's do this.
We have our 12 by 12 canvas.
Check.
We have our palette paper facing shiny side up.
Shiny side up. Check.
We have 6 colors of paint tonight. You ready? We have white, bright blue, chrome yellow, red, phthalo green, and black. I only named some of the colors, the rest were just very basic.
It's like some are descriptive, some are not. I'm just going to give you a 10-4 check on that one.
Just the phthalo blue, green actually. Phthalo green this time. We also have a cup with water.
Clearly labeled.
Clearly labeled paint water.
Check.
We also have a paper towel.
Little do-it-yourself item.
And then, you ready for this? Okay, we have a palette knife, super important for this painting.
Palette knife. Big check.
So this one is a pretty small palette knife, but if you have another one laying around, you could totally use that. I think this one is a size 2, maybe, or maybe I'm just making that up. And then we also have 2 brushes. We have a large brush, size 16 flat, and then a small round head brush, size 4. Alex, did you catch all that?
That's a size 4 and size 16 or something.
Oh,
That's
you're good.
10-4 check, Captain.
So there's a little plot twist. We might not be using the small brush today because it's mostly going to be the palette knife, but we'll see what happens. We're going to be spontaneous tonight. I'm just going to leave it down here.
I don't know if I feel betrayed or not, but I like the painting, so I'll roll with it.
Okay, we also have our step-by-step instructions and the reference photo over here so we know what we're painting.
That's a check and check.
And then we also have our adult beverage.
Lovely.
I'm not even going to say what mine is because it's so typical. So tonight it's a vodka soda, like always.
There goes the not saying it.
Well, I flashed it on screen, so I feel like I had to say it. And Alex, what about you?
I'm just enjoying a nice little cold beverage. Little whiskey blue, that's all.
Okay, well, we're going hard on a Tuesday, like always.
You know, a little casual elegance.
So if you guys do not know about Creatively, we actually sell everything you need for this specific painting on our website, creativelybox.com, at the bottom of the screen. So it comes with everything that you see here, except the paper towels.
We also forgot a very important part of our setup.
I always forget. Okay, I feel like people think that we do this on purpose, where like I forget on purpose, but I actually forget every single time.
No, you just forget a lot.
It's only been like 2 years since we've been doing this. Okay, so I'm gonna show you guys. So everything comes in this fancy, bright, I think it's coral box. I'm just gonna call this coral. And if you fold the lid back, you could put a piece of tape on this side and a piece of tape on the other side, and it becomes an easel. And you could just lay your canvas right inside and stand it right up. And this way you could see what you're painting from a distance. Very cool. And thank you for the reminder.
Got your back, Jack.
Okay, how are we doing on time? Okay, we still have a couple more minutes. Oh, we have Sandy from Hawaii. I don't remember anyone joining us from Hawaii before. Welcome, Sandy. Or
what island? I wonder what island is from Hawaii.
We were there a few months ago. And also, I wonder what time it is. It might be like early afternoon. Very nice. Love it. Okay, I am super excited to paint with this palette knife. Oahu, cool. So guys, let me know. So first of all, let me know if you're a first-time painter. If you're a first-time painter with Creatively, which means you may have painted before, just not with us. And also, has anyone used a palette knife before for painting? Alex, have you ever painted with a knife before? I know the answer to this.
I'm a connoisseur of it. I painted on the regular with all the knives, so yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay, we have Ontario, Canada in the house. Woohoo. Okay. I think we're ready, Alex.
Do we,
Yes, we do.
You're just trying to skip everything, aren't you?
I'm not. I just asked you if you're ready.
Are we ready, Coach?
All right, guys. So we're going to start off with the Creatively Pledge. So please raise your brush in the air and repeat after me. I promise.
I promise.
To have fun and relax.
To have fun and relax.
To not judge my painting.
To not judge my painting.
Or the painting of others.
Or the painting of others.
And to be fearless.
And to be fearless.
Cheers. Boom. We are ready. We're going to need a lot of the fearless part for this painting. Okay, so we are actually going to take our large brush and I'm going to dip it in the water and we're going to create a light blue background for our sky. So I want to just remind you guys, I'm going to say this probably maybe like 10 times, maybe 20, I don't know. But I want to remind you that this is your painting. So if you choose not to make a blue sky, you're more than welcome to do that. You could make your sky orange or light purple or pink or whatever color you want. Maybe even green, maybe not. Maybe not green, but pretty much any other color goes.
Let that creativity run wild.
Exactly. Oh, so just because I'm using the color blue doesn't mean it needs to be blue on your painting. And I also want to encourage you guys. So first of all, if you look at the original painting, I can't really tell what cityscape this is. I don't think it, even though it's named Empire State of Mind, I don't think it's New York. It's just a made up cityscape in my mind. But I encourage you guys to make your own cityscape version. So if you live in a beautiful city, feel free to get inspiration from that and make your buildings part of that skyline.
Maybe it's Gotham City.
Maybe it's Gotham City. Maybe this is, no, it's not. It's too colorful. So I'm gonna take a lot of white and just a little bit of my blue and mix them together. And I'm gonna cover my entire canvas with this color, so it might take a few minutes or so. And I'm just gonna go in horizontal strokes, just starting from the top and going all the way across. And also, feel free to use water to help your paint spread on the canvas.
Is it helpful to keep the same type of strokes the entire time? Like if
Like the direction wise?
Yeah.
It depends. Usually when I paint a sky, it's horizontal. But sometimes if you wanted to have like a glow in the middle, you could actually paint it circular. And this is actually what we did in our last painting, where we started in like a circular motion and went all the way around. So it really depends. It's up to you. Plus it's abstract, so you could take a lot of risks with this one. And we're just doing a thin layer. This is a really beautiful sky blue. Also, you're welcome to add some clouds in the sky or maybe some birds. So definitely feel free to play around with it, even though our sky is crystal clear in our painting.
Could be a rainy day in the city.
You mean this one or in general? Like you could be painting a rainy day in the city.
I mean, both. More specifically in regard to this painting.
This one? So I'm just using some water and it's helping my paint spread a little bit. Such a beautiful blue. So Alex, I do want to mention that for this month, we actually included the palette knife in our monthly subscriptions as a bonus item to our subscribers.
No way.
Yes. So just one of the perks of being a Creatively subscriber.
I'd say.
And it's also a stainless steel high quality palette knife, not just any palette knife.
We don't mess around.
I'm just saying.
You know, high quality stuff. A1.
So while we're painting this, guys, if you have a second or two to spare, please give us a thumbs up on this video and also follow us on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and Pinterest. And I feel like something else is missing.
And where would they find you? On these?
Well, actually this is a hashtag, but it's at CreativelyBox on all those channels. We're very consistent.
There you go. Consistency is key.
So once you get about halfway, you could actually go a little bit darker if you want for your reflection. Totally optional. And also you could mix in other colors into your background. So I think in this original painting, we used a little bit of a light purplish pink on the bottom here. And we're gonna do that too here as well. But just letting you know so you kind of get ready for adding additional colors to your sky if you want to go rogue and add, you know, other colors in there.
A little warning before we veer hard left.
Exactly.
I can respect it.
Also, feel free to paint the sides of your canvas with the same color. And that way it just looks a little bit more finished, and you could even hang it up on the wall and it'll almost look like it's framed. So you could paint the sides either in the same color as you're using now, or you could also paint it in black so it'll look more like a frame, or a different color, perhaps.
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
Which,
so like, if you paint the sides black, like completely contrast to like what's on the painting to really give it as if it's in a frame look.
I've done that before with some of my paintings. But I do like the look of just wrapping around the canvas in the same color that you're using on the front of the canvas. Gina's saying how quiet it is tonight. Everyone is just concentrating really hard, I see.
Everyone's about to architect their own city. It's a serious endeavor.
We're just going back and forth in horizontal brush strokes all the way down. Is anyone painting a specific city? Let us know in the comments.
I was literally about to ask if you think this is actually like not a specific city, but actually a city. Because I feel like it's not, like it's relatively unique in its skyscrapage.
Yeah, and the antennas sticking out of the buildings.
Yeah, I feel like only a couple of cities would fall into that potential.
And this painting that I'm doing right now might look totally different from the original. I don't know. I'm gonna be a little spontaneous tonight. We'll see. So we're gonna make our sides a little bit darker, so it almost looks like a, what is it called, vignette around the painting. Hope I pronounced that correctly. So you could take just a darker blue color and just mix it into.
What was that?
Vignette.
What does that mean?
It's when it's like a photography term. And I think I mentioned this before in our previous paintings. So
well, you know,
I don't know if you were paying attention.
There's a lot to keep track of. You know, there's just a lot.
But it's when the edges are slightly darker. And actually, Instagram has this as one of their effects. So They made it mainstream. So super subtle, I'm just using maybe one shade darker or so and just adding it to the edges. And if for some reason your color looks too dark, you could always bring back the original color just by going right into it with your original color. So with acrylic paint, you really can't make any mistakes just because you could paint right over it and fix your mistake. So don't worry so much about, what if I made my color too dark or too light, or I splattered a color on, a side of a canvas that I'm not supposed to have that color on. You could always paint right over it. So it makes it a little less intimidating, I would say. So I think I'm gonna add some pink to the bottom of my canvas. So I'm just gonna mix a little white and a little red. We'll see what happens. And I'm just gonna add it to the bottom here and going up into the sky.
Oh, pink,
or
you say?
Up into the reflection, actually. So this is water.
Oh,
Totally optional. This just gives it a little bit more character. Pizzazz. Good word. So also super subtle, just going right into this other color. You could even make it a little bit streaky if you want. This is all going to be water, so it doesn't need to be perfectly blended. But if you do want to blend it a bit more, you could just go over it with the original color, which is the light blue. And I think I'm going to make my blue just a little bit lighter in this section, just so it looks like a little bit more of the vignette. I'm actually really self-conscious that I'm not pronouncing it the correct way, but I hope I am.
I can't even describe how much I hope that you're not.
Thanks. So I'm just adding a lighter blue in the middle here. And you could use a little bit of water just to help spread it on the canvas. See, Bonnie just confirmed I'm saying it correctly. We can only hope. Thank you, Bonnie. So I'm just playing around with my sky and adding a few more variations of the color. So just a little bit dark on the edges and then a little bit whiter in the middle. Alex, you ready? This is probably the last time we're gonna use a brush for this painting.
Stop it.
I think.
It's actually
and this one here is just here for show. I'm just gonna put it to the side here. But we're gonna be using a palette knife for the majority of this painting.
Look good, feel good, paint good, right?
No idea what that meant.
Don't even worry about it.
So first of all, I am gonna add the horizon line into my painting just so I know kind of where the reflection is gonna be and where the buildings are gonna be. So you could use just a slightly darker blue for this, and this is more just for you to mark where your horizon is. So mine is gonna be slightly below the middle of the canvas. So maybe somewhere around here. And I'm just gonna drag this line all the way across. I don't know if I can make this line straight. And this is actually, this might even be a bit too dark for the marker, so you can make it even lighter. So just so you can see where it is. This is mostly for you. And I'm gonna put this brush down. So now we are gonna transition to this palette knife. Super excited. So we're gonna practice a few different techniques with the palette knife, but feel free to try it out on your end and kind of just like use it in different directions and different ways and see what works for you. So maybe when we're going horizontally across, you could try dragging it down and seeing what happens. So just remember, this is more abstract. So you could just have fun laying down the colors on your canvas and not worry so much about it looking like an actual cityscape. And Alex, you ready for this? I'm just gonna mention that this painting really comes together in the last step. So before the last step, it's gonna look extremely messy throughout the majority of the time. So don't worry, if yours is looking messy, it's gonna all come together in the last step.
Oh well,
And
I'm glad it's different than from the others that come together in the last step.
Sometimes it's not always like that, but for this one especially, it sort of is. Okay, so we are gonna start with the underlayer of these buildings, and this is more for you to kind of get a hang of your palette knife. So we are gonna mix a shade of blue that's a little bit darker than your background. So I'm gonna take this, so I'm mixing right with the palette knife. So I'm gonna scoop up some paint here, scoop up some white, mix it all together. And I'm gonna put paint on the back of my knife. And we're mostly gonna be using the back of our knife for this next step. And all we're gonna do is we're gonna make some rectangles on the canvas. So anyone can make these rectangles. I sometimes include a traceable in the box, but for this painting, I actually didn't, just because I want you to be really creative with where you put down your rectangles, what sizes and shapes you make them. So it's your cityscape. So we're just gonna start with one of our tallest buildings perhaps, and I'm just gonna lay this palette knife down and kind of go horizontally across. So, I don't know if you guys can see that. So the key here is just to keep your rectangles as straight as possible, but really anything goes. So I'm just using this palette knife and kind of dragging it across a little bit. And I might make this part darker just so you could see it, because it might be a little bit hard to see for you. So I'm just adding a little bit more blue. And so I'm just laying down the color with the back side of my knife and dragging it across. And so see, mine is already, it's not very straight, but I could straighten it out just by moving this palette knife over a bit. And then you could go in with the other side and drag the color the opposite way. And all we're doing is we're just making a rectangle. Right? Right? Super easy.
Most fun hat making a rectangle we've ever had.
So this is just the technique that I'm using for my building, but feel free to try out different techniques with the palette knife on your end. So I'm going to show you a few. So I'm just going to continue this reflection. So right underneath, I'm just kind of going to do the same thing, but this one's not going to be really perfect. I'm just dragging it down a bit. So kind of scraping my palette knife on the canvas. And that's pretty much it. So I'm gonna just lay down some of my other rectangles. So the key is just to make them different heights and different widths. So maybe for the next one, it's gonna be more of a wider building and it's gonna be shorter. So I'm just gonna go in here and add another building using the same technique. So you drag it from the left side and then the right side, and you have a rectangle.
That's cool.
I'm gonna mix more of this color here. And then maybe I'll do another shorter one here.
We got a quick request to just run through that technique one more time, one more again.
Sure. So I'm just dipping the back side of my palette knife with the color. And then I'm just taking the palette knife and just with the back side going horizontally to the right. And then to the left. But just play around with what works for you. So just reposition your knife a little bit, play around with it, see kind of how it works for you. So kind of like spreading butter on bread, I would say. So you're just spreading it to the right and then back to the left. And the only thing to keep in mind is try to keep your rectangles as straight as possible so they're not leaning over. And other than that, pretty much anything goes in terms of their shapes. So I'm gonna add some reflections here at the bottom. So this one is shorter, so the reflection is gonna be a bit shorter. This guy is longer, so this reflection is gonna be a bit longer. And all I'm doing is I'm just taking the palette knife and just going right across and then dragging it down a little bit. And then I'm just continuing my cityscape. So maybe I have another building that's a bit wider. And just make sure that you guys are picking up enough paint with your palette knife. So that way you could take the color and just drag it across. And then we could drag it from the other side. You could have some of these shapes overlapping a bit as well. So this is pretty much the foundation of your painting. And then we're gonna go in with other colors and just go really crazy. You could also try to do maybe a triangular roof. So one of these could have this kind of shape and then go down. So I just gave this one a little bit of an angle.
Little hey, what's happening?
A little hey, what's happening? And it actually looks really cool if you vary the blue color a little bit. So you might have some parts that are a little bit lighter, some that are a bit darker. So I'm gonna try to use this technique. I don't know what's gonna happen, but for the reflection, you could also try taking your palette knife and placing it horizontally and just dragging the color down this way and seeing what happens.
I was actually just about to ask you, like, on the palette knife, is it like the almost side edge that gets then dragged across? Are you going like almost flat?
So I'm going with the
trying
flat
to
part.
get like as much surface down as you
Yeah.
could?
Exactly. So if you want to make thin lines, then you use your edge, which we're going to do later on. But for now, we're just using the flat part and only the back of the knife. So we're just experimenting a bit. So I'm just using the back of the palette knife horizontally and just dragging it down and seeing what happens. So this is what I meant, where it's gonna look very messy till the very end, and you just have to brace for it and be okay with it and just be fearless and just continue. I'm just adding my buildings, just one right next to the other. And then going the opposite way, just to complete this rectangle part. So it's a bit hard to tell whether your rectangles are straight. And I don't think mine are, but that's okay. Because
Hey,
you could,
buildings sway, you know?
they're swaying a little bit.
Buildings sway.
You said it's a rainy day, so. So my blue is pretty light right now. It's kind of helping it look like it's more in the distance, which is really what we want for this blue layer. And just marking down where you think your buildings are going to be. And then I'm just going to go here and add some of these reflections. So just remember, if your building is short, your reflection is also going to be short here. You know, I think my reflections are a little crooked.
You know, maybe the puddle is just moving a little bit.
But you know, anything goes. Anything goes. And also, if you want to add a bridge to your cityscape, that could be a really cool touch. I'm almost tempted to add the Brooklyn Bridge here. So I want to hold this up for you guys because I want to show you it's really messy. And I promise it's all going to come together in the end. So just continue laying down these buildings. The palette knife is actually used for creating texture and really cool effects with the paint. So that's actually what we're doing here. So it's not perfectly blended at all. It has variations of texture everywhere. And there's just different colors of blue mixed into here as well. So if yours is looking messy, you're probably doing the right thing. And I'm going to continue adding some of these buildings. And all it is just rectangles, which I think that we could all do.
Don't overestimate or underestimate the difficulty of rectangles. Especially with a palette knife. Come on now.
So I'm going to try to drag this reflection down a bit using my palette knife in a horizontal way, and we'll see what happens. So I just laid down the paint in the back, and then I'm just going to take my knife and kind of drag it down. And that looks pretty cool. And then you could try to drag it the other way and see what happens. Should we do a few taller buildings, Alex? What do you think?
As they say, reach for the sky, right?
And this is just your back layer, guys. So most of these will be covered with other colors. So you could totally change up the shape of your cityscape later on. And then maybe I'll have another triangular roof somewhere here. So I could just use my palette knife to create this edge. And then just go down in the same way. What shape to do? That is the question. You want to make sure that your buildings aren't the same heights. So if you're finding that your buildings are getting to be the same height, you could just change a few of them up by making them a little bit longer.
Lena's appreciating the knife magic. Love it.
It is pretty magical.
I agree.
Who needs brushes anyway? So we're gonna add a few reflections here and there. So doing the same thing, so I'm just going down into my reflection, but for this reflection, I kind of don't care so much about getting the perfect rectangle just because it's a reflection, so it's not perfect. So even this shape looks kind of cool in the water. And this one's gonna be a taller. So Sandy says that she's used a palette knife for oil paint and not acrylic because it dries very quickly. Very good point, but for this painting, actually, you're able to add all of these different colors on top of this first layer just because it dries really quickly. So it gives you the opportunity to just mix and add colors together right away instead of having this layer dry, which is pretty cool. I'm just adding some reflections. And I could go in here and just play around with my buildings if I want to, and maybe if I don't want this one to be as short, I could do another taller building behind it if I want to. So definitely play around with this and see what your cityscape looks like. And it's looking very imperfect right now, which I love. So maybe I want to add another building here because this space in the skyline is kind of looking empty. And also, guys, if you want to do a specific building, like for example, the Empire State Building, all it is just smaller rectangles on the top, just getting smaller and smaller. So it's all just adding rectangles to your skyline. And maybe a few triangles here and there, but it's mostly rectangles, which everyone can do that shape. There we go. Okay, Alex, are you ready for some color?
Is that a trick question? Was born ready, coach. Born ready, coach.
Okay, so we're gonna start off easing into this color thing because I know that color could be a bit intimidating, but look how far we've come already. You basically have your entire skyline down. So I'm gonna start with maybe a purplish color first. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of red into my existing color. We'll see what happens. So this is the part, guys, where we're adding this color, and just because I'm using purple doesn't mean that you need to use purple at this time. You could go ahead and use any color that you want. So this is the most fun and creative part because we're just going to be laying down a bunch of colors here and kind of smearing them on this canvas. What's like more fun than this? I don't know.
Just letting it run wild.
I don't know. Yes.
Who even knows what's going to happen? Nobody.
So one thing I will mention is that you want your color to be kind of balanced. So if you're adding purple on one side of your canvas, then maybe add it a little bit on the other side. It doesn't have to be perfectly symmetrical, but as long as it's kind of spread out throughout your canvas, it's going to look much more balanced. Because let's say if you wanted to use red and you only used it on this side of the buildings, then automatically when you look at the painting, your eye is just going to go towards that red. But if you're using it throughout, then your eye kind of adjusts and is able to look through this entire art piece. Okay, let's just go right in and do this. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of purple. I don't know where. It's maybe gonna be in this building.
So, a little bit it is. A little
similar
bit of
technique. So we're just adding in the color, but you don't have to do like a perfect rectangle for this. You could add the color and maybe leave some of the parts the lighter blue. So you don't want to cover up all of the light blue. You could cover up maybe, I don't know, 60%, 50% of it or so with the other colors. And I'm just going to add a reflection while I'm at it. You could also use this other color to define some of your buildings in the front. So for example, I might have a building that's shorter and it's maybe over here. So I could just go in here with the palette knife and just define it a bit. I'm kind of doing the same thing where I'm dragging the color one side and then the other side, and then adding the reflection a bit. So it's a bit intimidating at first, laying down this color, but just let go of this fear and just do it. And that way, you allow yourself to be more creative, and you never know what your artwork is going to turn out like. It's going to probably look stunning in the end. So I'm laying down this purple here, but I could always go back with this color later on and maybe add more of it later if I want to. So just because I might move on to another color doesn't mean that I'm not gonna come back to this purple later on. I don't know. I don't know where we're going with this. And that's the beauty of this. So if you want to change to a totally different color, I might change to red right now. Just make sure you wipe your palette knife on your paper towel. You could also dip it in water if the paint dried a bit. I might need to do that. But for the most part, you could just wipe it off and it's brand new. So I'm gonna go in with red and add some of these buildings here. Don't forget about your reflection.
Dude, that was like the first bold color.
Yeah. It's always a little bit intimidating to do that, but it feels so good. So just remember, you could leave some of these buildings in the background and add in new buildings using this color. So for example, I could add a building over here using this color and leave the one behind it alone. And we're just gonna go crazy and just see what happens. I think the most important thing is just trying to keep this as straight as possible, which for me, that's the hardest part of making a rectangle. And I'm just adding the reflection. Is anyone else using a totally different technique for your palette knife? Curious.
Like using the handle, or what are you
No,
talking
like
about?
maybe using, maybe going this way instead and just smearing the color horizontally instead. You could always try that and just see what happens. So
So
I'm
the
gonna,
buildings are just like wide ranches, or
no, they'll just be a little bit wider, but it would look really cool also. So, so I'm gonna use my favorite color, which is the phthalo green mixed with a little white. And you're gonna see how gorgeous it is. So this color is absolutely gorgeous, and I'm gonna use it for some of my buildings.
what is sculpture paint?
I'm not sure.
Uh-huh.
Do tell, Don. Isn't this just the best color ever? I'm gonna see where else I want my green. Maybe here. And maybe I'll put some green on the other side as well. It's a bit hard to do on the left side of my canvas because I feel like I'm just bending in a very unnatural way. Try seeing what happens if you put this color down and just drag it down. You might be surprised. I don't know if I'm gonna leave that, but we'll see what happens. Okay, should we add a little more green? I think so.
Why not, right? Let's do it.
So maybe I'll add it. To this building here in the front. This is just a really colorful cityscape, but if you want to, you could use a limited color palette. So you could use maybe 3 colors or so and see what happens. But this one is very bright and joyous.
Bright and joyous is always good.
And it's definitely not a rainy day. So maybe I'll go in with yellow. And my reflection is a bit messier. I'm kind of just playing around with the palette knife and seeing what happens and dragging it down, because the worst thing that could happen is you'll just cover it up with a different color. So you see what I did here? Super messy looking. I don't know if I'm gonna leave it yet. We'll see what happens. But just play around with it. Don't be scared of just putting the color down and just really just seeing what happens. Because what's the worst thing that could happen? This is abstract. It's not even supposed to look like a city.
And you know, with
And
high quality creatively paint, you could just paint right over it once it dries.
thank you, Alex.
Boom.
And some of these colors could even blend together. So if you're putting down paint next to the red, it might turn orange, you don't know. Maybe we'll have a building in the front in yellow. And it could be covering some of these other buildings. Is it looking like New York, Alex?
It's basically the New York skyline, right? Is it not?
Yeah, certainly. So I might use an orange right now. So I'm gonna mix the yellow and the red. Can you guys see what I'm mixing? And we're just gonna continue building on this. Oh, did you catch the pun? That was totally by accident.
I just
That was,
love
that
your
was so
own-
good.
I love your own sheer amazement at it.
That was like the best
Your
accidental
own
pun I've ever made.
Surprise at how good the fun was.
We're just
Which is
gonna
questionable.
be building on this right
But
now.
you know, I can appreciate the happy accident.
If you want this building to be in the back and by accident you went over the building that's in the front, you could always just add more of the paint of the front building right over it. So I think I'm gonna do that a little bit later because I want the yellow building to be up in the front. And again, I would leave some of these buildings the original blue as well. But maybe I want a little building here, in the back. And I'm just gonna smear some orange into this reflection, because why not? Right into the yellow and see what happens. So just have fun with it. So I might want to add a little bit more purple into my reflection. So I'm just gonna scoop some up. And I'm just gonna add it back, and we're gonna see maybe it's gonna blend in with this orange color. But we're just playing around and seeing what happens. Maybe I'll add another purple building here.
Get real crazy with it.
Why not, right?
We only build once. In theory. Hopefully not.
So you could go into here, into the reflections, and just add more of the bright colors and just go a little crazy with it. So right now it's just looking super bright with a second layer of color. So I think I still need maybe something here, maybe something here. We'll see what happens. Maybe I'll use more orange. Also, feel free to use pink or colors that I haven't used here yet.
What do you think the craziest color will be that we see? Because, you know, what do we want them to do with it?
With their painting?
With their painting?
Let's see. So we always ask you guys to please post what you created on social media, either on Instagram or Facebook, and tag us either using @creativelybox or #creativelybox. And that way we'll be able to see what you created and potentially share it on our own social media.
Don't be afraid to, you know, put the whole crew and face in it.
Yes, we
Put the
love seeing your
artist-
faces.
Put the artist to the painting. It's always fun.
Yeah, plus you get major bonus points for that also. So what would happen if I take my palette knife and I just smear this way? Looks kind of cool, I would say. And I'm just playing around. I don't really know where this is going. It's looking pretty different from this one, but as I told you guys, it's all gonna come together in the end. So I'm gonna see what else I'm missing. Well, I'm missing a reflection here. So I'm gonna add a reflection here. And I'm just gonna leave this building blue, maybe. And maybe I don't know why I just wiped my knife because I want to use more of this color. So maybe I'll just add a... Uh, hmm. And as an artist, you guys get to make all of these decisions, like where to place your color. It's always like, where do I place this color right now? So definitely don't be afraid of taking risks. I just took a few. I did not know what's gonna happen. I'm also doing this on camera live. So it's a bit risky to take these risks, but I'm doing it. So I'm hoping that you guys do it too.
Say risk one more time.
Risks, risks, risks. Sometimes it's nice to go over some of these colors just because it gets a lot brighter. So you could just literally just take your palette knife, add in more of this color here and there. And it's also adding more texture. I also noticed that right now my yellow is not really balanced on this painting, so I might add it in other places as well. So I might add a little bit of yellow here, for example, just to balance it out a bit. Because why not? Also, it's gonna feel a little more balanced, hopefully. And then maybe I'll add orange on the other side. Also, you could try adding different colors to your buildings. Because we're kind of keeping them the same color, but you could mix it up and make a building that's multicolored.
Oh, I was literally took the words out of my mouth.
Isn't that crazy?
Multicolored building? That'd be something. That would be something.
So I'm gonna hold this up close to you guys because I wanna prove to you that this is really looking very messy right now. And that's okay. Looks kind of better from the distance. So maybe I want to add a little bit more red to just make it brighter because this red looks a bit faded. And a bit translucent. Okay. So once you're happy with your skyline, and you could keep going, you could keep changing the buildings around. So it's really easy to just add more color and change the entire shape of the skyline. So you could make some of these buildings taller. You could make some of these buildings wider if you want to. So definitely keep playing around. I actually want to add some yellow to my reflection. But this next step is really going to make everything come together. So I'm just getting a little bit more of my reflection down, and then I'll show you guys the next step. And my tissue paper is looking like a work of art also. Kind of beautiful. Okay, so for the next step, I'm gonna take some black and I'm gonna define the buildings with lines. So I'm gonna start off with vertical lines. So I'm gonna dip the edge of this palette knife. So I don't know if you guys saw, but I'm dipping the edge of it. This time it's not the back of it, it's the edge. And my black is a little bit dry, so I might need to add more fresh paint on here, but I'll see what happens. And I'm just gonna go with this knife and define the edges of some of these buildings. So it doesn't need to be all of them. We're gonna see what happens, but we're gonna define some of these. And this is your chance to straighten out your lines if you want to. If your buildings were a little bit slanted, you could actually use the black to straighten them out. And this is the part where I could add smaller horizontal lines here. And another antenna line on the top. And this is one of my buildings. You could start off with just the vertical lines for now. And it would actually help to do the horizon line. So I'm going to add some black to the horizon line. Trying to keep it pretty straight. And this line is going to be thicker. And you could use this opportunity to straighten it out a bit with your additional lines that you're adding. And you could use this black to add lines in front of some of these buildings, just to define the buildings that are in front. And don't forget some of these triangles for some of your buildings. You could define those as well. So this red building has a triangular roof, so I'm just going to define it here with my edge. And maybe I'm going to add a few more antennas here and there, just with my palette knife. How are you guys doing? And especially those who are using the palette knife for the first time.
Is it magical? Tell me how it's coming. I'm a little jealous.
Are you?
Only slightly.
Just make sure that some of these buildings are overlapping the other ones, so it looks like some are in the front and others are in back. And you could leave some of these lighter blue buildings just in the background, kind of as off into the distance. This water cup is in the way, and I realized I haven't even used it today. I'm also going to add some windows or floors, whatever you want to call it, to some of these buildings. For this step, you could either go with horizontal lines or vertical, and you could switch it up throughout. So for example, For this building, I might want to use horizontal lines. I'm just going to add short little lines. Going down my building. And then for this red one, I might want to do vertical lines for it. So just with the palette knife, using the edge, I'm just creating a vertical line here. And then I'm going to do another one right next to it. And then for this one, and not all of these buildings need to have the definition of windows or floors, just some of them.
It's crazy how a little definition like starts just tying it all.
Yeah, just like a few lines here or there.
Exactly.
And maybe some of these buildings just have like one other line here, which kind of makes it appear as if they're facing a certain direction. So you could play around with that. And we definitely want to add some antennas to this side as well. You also want to make sure that we're adding some of these lines to our reflections. For the reflection, it doesn't need to be perfectly a replica of the top part. You could skip some of the lines. The reflection is going to be a bit more abstract. For example, I'm not going to have this horizontal line at the end because the reflection is going to be fading the building out. So I'm actually not going to have any tops of the buildings at all. Mostly just the vertical lines and maybe some windows. And if you guys are having fun tonight, don't forget to give us a thumbs up on this feed, and also potentially leave us a review on Facebook.
Follow us.
And
tag
follow us. And tag us.
Show us the work.
We're asking for too much. But your review on Facebook is super helpful to us. It helps us build trust with our customers and helps us get the word out about our business. So we would totally appreciate you leaving a review on our Facebook page if you had a great time. And just remember, these vertical lines don't have to be exact. You could skip some of them. You could make some of them a little bit longer. And we're going to add some horizontal shorter lines as well. But it doesn't need to be perfect here. Just make sure though that your lines are differing lengths. Did I do a few more antennas, Alex? What do you think?
Yes.
The question is not if, it's where. I am so excited to see your pieces because I know with this type of artwork, everyone's is going to look totally different, and I'm just super excited to see it. So please make sure to post it on Instagram and Facebook and tag us or use hashtag creativelybox so that way we could see it. You could also post it in this event page, just in the comment section, and we'll see it as well. Okay, so I am gonna create some more ripples in my reflection by using white. So I'm just gonna clear my knife, and I might need to use a little water for this. And I'm gonna do the same thing, but I'm only using horizontal lines for this. And they're gonna be pretty short. And the ones that are gonna be towards the bottom of the canvas are gonna be even shorter. And we're not gonna do too much of these, just a little bit. But I actually wanna add more of the black lines to the horizon. So I'll do that afterwards. Just make sure that they're differing lengths as well. So I'm gonna go back in with black. And I'm just gonna add more of these lines to the horizon. So it's gonna get really close together right next to the horizon, but then they're kind of spreading out a bit towards the bottom. So these lines are almost coming together, and then they're getting further and further apart. And for this last step, Alex, you know what it is?
Sign them. Sign it. Sign it? No?
So for the last step, it is to sign your canvas.
You can't just leave me out on a ledge like that. I literally thought I got it wrong.
Your signature is a part of the art piece, so figure out where you want to place it. Where I usually place it is on the bottom right-hand corner, but it's totally up to you. And I think that's it. This was our first abstract, creatively art piece. How freaking exciting is that?
Yes.
And you guys did it. Thank you for being brave and just doing something totally new. We can't wait to see what you created. Please share on social by tagging us at CreativelyBox or hashtag CreativelyBox. And we'll see you next time. Thank you guys so much for joining. Bye.
Bye.